Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of Superhero Speak.
But I think many of the people that love this character and that love superheroes in general have used these stories as inspiration to say, you know what? I'm going to do something good in the world. I'm going to make a difference like my hero when I was a kid.
That is my fondest memory of it, because when you're doing comic books, you want them to affect people, right? You want people to care. You want to strike emotions, and I knew that Clone Saga was striking a lot of emotions.
Can you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Mickey Mouse?
I can totally imagine that.
I'm sure somebody's written that one
quarter
too.
pounder with cheese in France, Mickey? What? Boy, ale with cheese, Mickey. Yeah, I can totally.
See?
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Yes, I gladly sacrifice up my progeny to you, almighty Marvel beast.
But Neil Adams is somewhere going, it's my time.
How do you measure success?
Hey everyone, and welcome to Superhero Speak. I'm your host, Dave. No, I am not drunk.
Yeah. I mean, stop stealing my shtick. I'm John.
I guess I'm JD. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
Neither do I.
I'm just in a mood.
For love?
God, you beat me to it by seconds.
No, I've got plenty of love. Just in a mood.
So for a melody? You in the mood for a melody? Are you in a mood?
I'm in the mood for a melody.
That Robert Plant solo album from the 80s.
Who's going to sing?
Like Robert Plant.
No, John. John's got a lovely voice.
Yeah, but not for Robert Plant. Although I remember doing Sledgehammer, but it's been a while.
That's Peter Gabriel.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
So how's everyone doing? John, how are you? How is your life treating you? Okay.
Still working on Minecraft mod, putting together some stuff with my nephew that's working out with me is on vacation. So I'm just working out some details. We're about to start creating blocks in Minecraft, and we're trying to figure out what kind of magic system he wants to make, or tech system. So that's going well. Otherwise, fairly anemic summer season for anime. I've only got 3 that I'm watching right now, and I'm rewatching Dragon Maid. So nothing there. I finished all of the outstanding Jim Butcher books. And next up, I've got 2 more. I've got Benedict Jacka next. I'm going to finish all the books I've missed over the last couple of years, where I was too depressed to read. And then after that, I'm going to go through all of JD's books. And JD, is there an order to your books? Did you go on to Goodreads and make an order there for your books?
Goodreads is the worst place on earth.
Is it really?
Oh, it's horrible. If you're an author, stay there. Your advice: stay away from Goodreads.
Really? Why?
People are meaner on Goodreads than they are in Amazon traditionally. Like if you have a 4.5 star rating on Amazon, traditionally it's 4.1 in Goodreads with something.
I mean, but the point of Goodreads is to basically keep track of what the authors. It's easier to keep track of what the author's putting out. Get all your authors together, in your own list, and then be able to see what normally they put all of their books in order there, so you can see what the order is. In Amazon, sometimes it doesn't really tell you what the order is.
Well, mine are ordered. The numbers are actually all of them. The numbers are actually on the cover. It's volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, so you can actually see it there.
I've got all the hardcovers from all the Kickstarters I've done with you, but I'm also getting them on Kindle because it's easier to read them there.
Kindle is an easy place to read. I finished a book last night on Kindle. Yeah, but they're all right there, so you can just look at it.
So not only does he not pay attention to the podcast, he doesn't pay attention to visual clues you have on your books, JD.
I'm not going to say a bad word about John when it comes to this stuff.
You will, however, murder me.
Multiple times. Multiple.
Let's see. This one doesn't have a number on it
because it's number 1. Grab the next one. Grab the next one.
Oh, volume 2. Volume 3. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now you got to reprint this one with volume 1 on it, right?
Then I got to pay to have it recut. Then they're going to charge me to have that redone.
Well, it's
fine.
Yeah, but when you get, when you get
at some point, you have to, pay to have all your stuff redone. So when I'm ready to do that, I'll take that under advisement.
Yeah, you get to volume 23, then you can get them all redone.
Hey, they ain't getting to volume 23.
You got to put out the platinum edition and the like the 5 different covers of the same edition.
And the collector's edition.
The collector's edition. And then the compendiums. Don't forget the compendiums.
I don't even know what a compendium is.
When you put out volume 1, 2, and 3 in the same book, kind of like they did with the Bulgariad and the Malorian for David Eddings. You can buy the individual books, or you can buy them, 2 books with 3 books each.
Oh, I do have that compendium. Okay, we used omnibus is the term I used for it. So I do have an omnibus for the first 3 Jericho books.
Oh, cool.
I have not done it for the last one. I probably should when before the next one comes out. So it's a good idea. Those are cheap to put together. But John, I wasted all that. Okay.
Yes. How are you, JD?
Boy, what a week! I had a lot of stuff going on. Kickstarter closed, broke my record for the most number of backers. I finally hit 100 backers on a Kickstarter.
Excellent.
I'm very happy about that.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was good. Now I can wait for the money to come in and start dishing out all these novellas to everybody. Very excited. That was good. This week, I have to tell you, did I make the official announcement yet? I haven't been approved by the board, but no one from DeKalb listens to this podcast, so I'll just say it. I am teaching. I am now a teacher at DeKalb High School, the school I've been coaching at since 2016.
Yeah, you said last week. Do you know what you're teaching yet?
Yeah, graphic communication. So I'm teaching graphics 1 and graphics 3. It's Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, those kind of things.
Nice.
It's going to be weird because I'm just going to follow the syllabuses that's been set before me because I don't know how to teach. And I'm also doing video production 1, second semester, which is right up my alley.
You know how to teach.
I do. I mean, so what I'm getting stressed about is not the kids and not the teaching. It's like the people, right? I've had so many meetings. I don't even know what end is up. Like all these computer programs we're supposed to use, all these like different meetings we're supposed to have, it's not the kids that are stressing me out. It's everybody. It's all the teachers. Like that's where I find that my most level of stress is coming from. And like, I feel like they're making this not harder, but like, I feel like there's a lot, right? And I feel like it's not, I don't know, like having not been, because a lot of these people work their whole lives to do this. They were in a bind and they had me and they said, hey, state of Illinois will allow this. Are you interested? I said, yeah, I could kind of use a full-time thing because it takes a lot of the pressure off. Like, I don't want to be a videographer anymore. I kind of hate my day job. Dave got a call. I hate my day job and I've been wanting reason to get out of it for a long time. And the writing is going good, but I don't write to market. Like I write what I like. Like I write the stuff that I want to like. Like I want to read. I don't write like, well, this is the hot trend. This is what you should be writing. And it's weird because like in independent writing, they shame you for doing that. Like you're shamed if you
for doing the writing whatever you wants.
Writing what you want, writing what you want instead of writing what the market wants.
Right. So basically the skin books these days. Like you gotta have romance with vampires and werewolves. That sells a lot.
That's a hot genre. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I mean, like there's other stuff that you're told, well, read what's selling, and then you write the exact same book, but you put your own twist. I'm not interested in that. I have it's not for me. I know I'm not no hurting anybody else who wants to do it that way. It's just not for me. So now the pressure's kind of off as far as trying to like quote unquote make it as a writer. I can just do the stuff I want to do, and then I have this to like pay the bills and whatnot. So I feel good about that, but it's just like a year. Like I think this year, because it's so new to me, it's a little stressful. I think after a year I'll feel better about it. But right now it all just kind of came together so quick and it's still a little stressful.
I would say
maybe you can combine techniques and if like a kid gives you trouble, you put them in a headlock.
I cannot do that actually. That's actually I specifically said you cannot swear at the kids, you cannot yell at them, you cannot headbutt them. And I said, I'm aware, I know that. Know how to deal with teenagers. Like I said, I've been coaching teenage boys this is my 18th season as a wrestling coach.
Holy moly.
Yeah, I've been doing this since 2003. So I mean, like I know how to do that. I mean, like I know how to do my old, because I'm basically teaching my old job. So I know how to do this. I'm essentially a glorified shop teacher, which is totally cool. Shop's awesome. But I'm a shop teacher on a computer. But it's all like the other stuff. It's like, well, you need this program to do this. You need to know how to do this program and do that. And you need to have all these things print up. You got to know how to deal with the IEP. You got to do this. And I'm just like, that's the stuff that's kind of like, because look at these people that have trained their whole lives to do this job. And I just got kind of thrown into it. So that's a little, okay, we're going to see how this goes.
Right.
You hear that, everybody? He's officially a teacher, which means he's officially underpaid. You have to go with his Kickstarters now.
Yeah, you should anyway. What's nice is in part of the graphics classes is I have a printing press at my disposal.
Oh, nice.
And I have like a t-shirt screening thing at my disposal. So that's going to level up my Kickstarters big time. I just got to figure out how to use them before the kids know I don't. So yeah.
YouTube is wonderful. Just put in the model number of it and yeah.
Yes, believe me, I'm going to be utilizing tutorials big time. Because again, like as far as like teaching Photoshop, I'm like, I'm good. Like as Illustrator, I'm all right with. InDesign, I'll learn it in a weekend. I'll learn what I need to do to get by. And then after a couple of years, you're an expert at this stuff. So it's just changing life. And I've been looking for a life change for a long time. So this is good, especially with Andy in school. He's starting first grade now, so it's good. We had a camp out this weekend. My brother and his kid came down, and we all tented out in the backyard. So because we live on a 3/4 of an acre. So we had a lot of land and went to the zoo today. So it was a nice, like, last day of summer before getting it back in thing. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing good.
They're all okay. You okay? Is pizza on the way?
No, that was my child bugging me about something, and I said I would take care of it when we're done.
Gotcha.
That's the thing I love. We're in the same house, and he'll call me. He's downstairs on his computer, and I'm up here. So no, okay. I promised you I was going to complain about family. So,
please.
I don't know if I ever talked about on the show many moons ago. I did consulting work for my brother's company. I helped them they had a software program. I helped them get it finished and updated into like the latest version of .NET and whatnot. And it was a long time ago. And then got it working, blah, blah. He paid me. And then like would always come to like, oh, they want to do this. They want to do that. Right. And I was like, okay, but I was like, I want to up my rate because he wasn't paying me next to anything. He wasn't even paying me gas station attendant rates. So, yeah, we'll work on that. And then like he wouldn't raise the rate. So then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got other things going on, Bob. And then every once in a while he would just ask me a question and I'd answer it real quick. Blah, blah. Now he's years later, all of a sudden he needs help with it again with something. And like, he hasn't mentioned payment at all, but he keeps bothering me like, oh, did you look at this? Did you look at, like, I'm busy. Like, you're not paying me. You're my brother. Go away. And if you're going to hire an actual consultant, they're going to charge you 3 times what you were paying me. So,
yep.
Yeah. So I was just like, ugh, that's why I was complaining. He texted me right before we started recording. It was like, go away.
I was
busy this weekend. Other than that, things are good. I'm single for the next few days.
Oh, so she dumped you?
She's on vacation with her kids.
Oh, I thought you were on a break.
No. She went on vacation with her kids for
we're on a
days,
break.
Sure.
Exactly.
And I was like, go have a good time. Don't worry about me. And she hasn't stopped texting me since she left. So I'm like, go have fun with your sons. Like,
that's a good sign.
Well, she's bored because she's not a teenage boy. So, and they want to.
I would hope not. You're not the Catholic Church.
Oh, John with the zinger. No, like it's different when she goes and does stuff with me because we're the same age. We enjoy the same things. And like, we don't mind sitting down and relaxing for a while in between activities. A 17-year-old boy wants to just go. So, yeah. So, remember those days, John?
Dude, like that was the Pleistocene era. I mean, I don't.
John with the old jokes. And I have the question for both of you guys. You're both men, right?
I think so. Yes.
Well, okay. Physically.
I mean,
spiritually?
Mentally?
Let's not take mentally. No, it's not.
All right. And JD, you sport a beard.
I do.
Not
a very good beard, but beard.
I sport peach fuzz. Like the only thing that really grows is my mustache and goatee, and then like
you
comes in.
You don't have peach fuzz. You at least have hair. I have the peach fuzz.
So the other day I'm looking like, and the thing is, I would probably be more clean shaven, but she likes the facial hair. And I'm looking in the mirror the other day and I'm noticing more and more gray in it. So,
oh yeah, no, I've got gray.
Dude, I'm young.
Silver.
I'm younger than you guys, and I got plenty of gray in my beard.
So
yeah, but you've got a kids.
But it's bothering me. I have too. It was bothering me. So we're in the supermarket and I grabbed the Just for Men for the beard, right? Because like you don't see it in my hair, so I'm fine with that. And she gets upset. And she's like, but I like your gray. And I'm like, wait, you dye your hair all the time. And she goes, it's different for me. I'm a girl. So Have either of you ever dealt with that? And like, is it a double standard? Or is it just me?
If I ever did, I would accidentally look like Mirror Universe Spock.
Okay.
Like, I would grab the wrong one by accident. No, I have, and you've made fun of my bald pate atop my head, but I've decided I'm just going to age the way I'm going to age. I don't give a damn if I've got silver, not gray, in my hair and whatever, and I'm starting to get a little Reed Richards over here. I that's the way it falls out.
I'm still kicking and screaming.
I could get hair plugs or whatever for the top of my head. I don't care what. Why?
I got a baby face, and I've always had people think I was younger than I am. The beard with the grays kind of stops that, so I'm okay with it. My wife, and I got a little bit of gray. I got a little bit of the Reed Richards. Like, and I'm a lot younger than you guys, but I'm graying a little bit.
Rub it in, why don't you?
Well, I am, but I'm graying. Like I said, I got gray here. Like, my wife's starting to gray a little bit, and she doesn't care. I could see her having like silver hair in a few years and not giving a shit about it. And we're the same age. So.
Am I wrong? Is it a double standard? Like,
yeah,
she can dye her hair and gets mad at me for when I dye my beard.
Well, it's funny because, like, I think with women, it's almost like expected for them to dye their hair. Like, you see a lot of like older women whose hair still looks clearly dyed, but it's like expected. Where men can gray out and it's not considered a big deal. It's considered like, oh, he looks distinguished.
It's
but
if a woman
gets gray, it can look like old. It's funny. I saw a picture. I'm not a celebrity fan or anything like that, but like, Jeffrey D. Morgan, the guy who played, the comedian.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
There's a picture of him and his wife at some wedding, and I'm like, wow, this woman's beautiful, but she had like gray hair, like silver gray. And I look like, who is he married to? And it's just the woman that used to be on One Tree Hill, this Hillary Burton, and she's younger than me.
Wow.
And she has like boom, shock of silver hair. I was like, wow, great with it, but it was like shocking to see. So I was like, you know what, good for her for just being like, this is what I look like. Cool.
Well, that's a real problem in the industry, including in the movies that we see, right? We've talked about that. All the women, they don't age like they used to, but for a lot of them, it's a real problem with the plastic surgery experimentation and the Botox and none of that has anything to do with how beautiful they are as a regular person. It's all pressure from studio execs. You have to look good. You have to look younger. We need to draw an audience, whatever.
Well, flip side of that too is like, how often do you see a 40+ man or 50-year-old man with a romantic lead that's in her 20s?
All the freaking time. Like almost every single time these days.
I mean, it's not even easy. This goes back like 30, 40 years. Like, this has kind of always been how it is. Like, dudes in the movies are always, dating women young enough to be their daughter.
Yeah. Well, look at all the James Bonds.
James Bond, that's an example. Look at Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah.
Or like, Laura Dern's like 25 in that movie. She doesn't look 25. She looks older.
Yeah.
And then I can't think of the name of the actor. Sam Neill is deep into his 40s.
But Laura Dern talked about that, didn't she?
Yeah.
I think she's talked about that on the circuit. So
in a movie we're about to talk about a little later, the lead hits on a woman in the video store.
Yeah.
That's the same age as the daughter in the movie.
Yeah, that wasn't part of the script. They were just filming when Arnold was doing his thing.
Okay.
Hey, Arnold.
Yeah.
That cartoon has been
back then. It didn't matter.
It really didn't. And there's an absolute, and you cannot say there wasn't, especially back then. People are like, especially women are more willing to call it out now and how much bullshit. And you got like Nicole Kidman, well into her 50s, right? Who's still a leading woman, right, and doing some really good work. But I mean, I think she's the exception rather than the rule.
Very true.
I mean, heck, we're about to see Helen Mirren in the Shazam sequel this year.
Helen Mirren has got Lucy Liu too, right?
Lucy Liu too. But Helen Mirren's like in her 70s.
Yeah,
but again, she's the exception, not
she's the exception.
Yeah, because she's always had something she's extra.
She's hot as hell.
Yeah,
like even at 70. Like I was telling my wife the other day, like, well, we were talking about movies Andy can watch and can't watch. And I mentioned that my dad watched Excalibur all the time when we were growing up. And then at like 12, he turned on Excalibur and I was like, oh, hello.
Exactly.
Who might this be?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I first realized who Helen Mirren was. You hit that age, you're just like, oh, this movie rules on a completely different level.
Yep.
So,
yes.
Yeah. But again, those are the exceptions, not the rule. But it is changing, and hopefully it goes away from people having these like horrendous surgeries and stuff like that.
Jane Seymour was mine, I think.
Jane Seymour was something.
Yeah,
She's still great looking. Yeah.
Yeah, she was also somebody that had just something that
for sure. It's called hotness.
Yeah.
But she actually looked better. She's actually looked better in like Dr. Quinn era than she did in like.
Oh yeah, she looked better and better as she got older.
Yeah,
it was
like
you know.
She was well into her 50s, and you're like, golly. And then you look back at picture when she was young, like, well, she's pretty, but not like that's like fine wine there.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Who was your first celebrity crush?
I don't know if I had a crush, but the first one I was like, I noticed and was like, whoa, was literally Helen Mirren in Excalibur.
Yeah.
Jane Seymour in Battlestar Galactica.
She was in Battlestar Galactica.
Yep, she was.
I never watched the original show.
She was the reporter in the first movie that they used to launch Battlestar Galactica, the whole thing, the very first one. So
I was too young when that show was popular. So.
She was killed. They killed her off really quick by the end of I think the first or second movie, and then they had the TV series, but she was gone by then.
Aaron Gray also.
I was going to say.
Oh
Aaron Gray and Buck Rogers.
But I thought she looked better in Silver Spoons. Perhaps that's because that's
she. She did because it was another. I don't know. I mean, I'm coming at this. That's kind of funny. As a 52-year-old, I still see the older women as more beautiful. But even back then,
that's like 2 years. There's not like a huge difference there. It's like literally 2 or 3 years difference.
Yeah,
I know.
She went right from Buck Rogers to Silver Spoons.
But still, I don't know, it was different. Well, you got to remember the second season of Buck Rogers, the guy who started running the show was incredibly misogynistic, and that's why she became completely useless the second season.
You telling me a guy working in television was misogynistic?
Yeah, I know.
In the 70s? The hell you say?
The thing was that she was so popular in the beginning because she was a very strong woman, head of the defense forces on Earth, the first season, and then the second season, they made her a glorified, I don't know what.
And then the show ended, which is weird too, because in the late 70s, you did see an uptick of that. You had Wonder Woman, you had the Bionic Woman, like they were not like they weren't like TNA'd, but I mean, like there was like a push towards stronger female characters. And then in the 80s, that completely goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, ever hear things about the A-Team where it was a boys' club?
Oh, totally.
Behind the scenes and everything.
And
yeah.
George Papard, I remember they were interviewing, I forget the name of the one that's on that show, but like the one that comes at the end, he's like, we don't want you here. You're only here because the network says you have to be here. We don't need you.
Right.
Like, and this is a grown ass man, like an old man at that point too, Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird how that changes in that decade between the 70s and the 80s.
Another one was Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future.
I remember Captain Power.
They was Jessica Steen, but Straczynski was writing it, and towards the end, they ended the show because he had made it actually good.
Captain Power had a toy that you could zap at the TV during the show. That's what I remember about Captain Power, because they were supposed to be writing it to me, but they were appealing to you, which is the problem.
But and that was the point. Straczynski could never
too young. Skew too old. They don't want kids in kids shows. You don't want them to skew old. You want them to buy the toy.
Well, and that's the problem, because it's a mistake they keep making until, and I hate to bring this up, My Little Pony Generation 4. It skewed older than they expected because of the show writer, but they leaned into it and they got 9 seasons and like $1 billion worth of merchandise.
Yeah, but in screen, okay, that is the exception. That is the exception that proves the rule, because you guys are weird, man. But
they leaned into it.
Weird. They did lean into it. You're right.
You don't see anybody lean into it though. You gotta wonder if somebody else leaned into it,
because it's hard to program. Like it's all about advertising dollars, right? And it's weird. Like that show doesn't make it 10 years, like 12 years ago as it is, right? But now with this uptick in streaming and stuff that wouldn't have made it a season is getting 4 or 5 seasons now, because like viewership numbers are not what they, unless we're talking about live sports, are not what they used to be. And now we're seeing the contraction of these streaming services, And they're talking about now with the stories Warner and Paramount, I think, or Warner and Peacock is a rumor floating. I don't know. John can't talk about that, but
I'm not allowed to say anything, even if I knew anything. I'm not. Right, even if I didn't know anything, I'm not allowed to say something.
Right, but I mean, like, there's going to be more contraction. We talked about this. We've been talking about this for years. Like, we're starting to see. I don't know if the bubble burst because these places are still making money, but I mean, like, coming off the pandemic when everybody had nothing to do, people have stuff to do again. So a lot of these bases are plummeting faster than expected.
That was one of the first things Discovery said is we're scrapping HBO Max and merging it with Discovery Plus. And
they're not like, but they're keeping the HBO Max branding, which nobody expected. Everyone thought they were going to kill HBO Max altogether. And like, turns out the Discovery execs realized, oh, there's far more value in the HBO name than in the Discovery name. Because there is like HBO.
There's more value in the HBO name than there is actually in HBO, but that's another.
It really is. I mean, that's true. Like HBO is a symbol of quality for over 30 years. It is like HBO television. Though? Yes, absolutely.
See,
HBO television. Yeah, dude, Emmys up the wazoo.
But not until mid-aughts.
No, before The Sopranos.
When was The Sopranos?
The late 90s. Excuse me.
No.
Yes.
1999.
No. 1999.
Now I feel old.
The Wire was 1996. So
it's
HBO.
That old?
Yes. HBO has been like, and even before that, they were doing like they did like the Paradise Lost documentaries in the mid 90s. Like HBO has been quality from like jump when they started doing original stuff. It's always been good. And it's like the name. It's the name in cable entertainment to this day.
Yeah. They always seem to come out with some winners.
Yeah, always. There's always good stuff. I told Michelle, I'm like, get ready to change life again. Game of Thrones is reborn.
Oh gods, I don't know.
I love that show so much.
1999 was.
I know, but
that's what I said.
Was it?
Yeah,
yes,
that's what he said. He just said.
That's literally what I just said. And I said The Wire was 96.
Like in other news, like Crunchyroll or Sony, they bought out Funimation. They own Crunchyroll. And now they've also bought out rightstuffanime.com. So they are still on a buying spree. So like the anime side of things, they are definitely consolidating all those streamers.
But they played it real conservative. When everybody jumped in, and they were early into the streaming game. They had their own streaming service a decade before anybody else was talking about it with Crackle. So they saw this and they were like, let's not go crazy. Let's see where this goes. And they haven't spent but haven't lost either. Like everything is a loss leader right now. No one's making money on these services.
No.
Right. They're all projecting to make money down the line. So I mean, like everyone's spending. So Sony might wind up winning this whole thing just from being a little bit more conservative in how they played this.
Well, they are on the anime side. Like if they take
but anime, it's different though.
Well, I mean,
because anime,
it's an entire market. They're like cornering an entire market.
But you're right. They are, but it's a different market, right? It's not like they need content generation.
All of those studios were generating content.
Yeah, but they are still generating content.
Yes.
Now they're generating content. They own the content they're generating.
But now there's not as much content because it's all under one umbrella and you don't like
that's not Sony's problem.
It is Sony's problem because they're going to get less for their money. I mean, they're going to consolidate and then
maybe not. I mean, that's saying they're collecting what they have value in, and they're not jumping all in on creating one of these platforms. Eventually, someone's going to need something, and they're going to have to say, "Hey, we need content." Well, because it's content creation that's hurting these places,
right? But here's the other thing: the Right Stuff Anime had a few licenses that they didn't own yet, like for Gundam. So one of the big Gundam's a huge one.
I know Gundam.
Okay, but the other thing is Right Stuff Anime is famous for their box sets and their like selling actual physical media. So now Sony's got like the biggest distributor of box sets and stuff, and really nice box sets too. The company did really good, and I don't know. I'd say they have at least half the market now. If they got High Dive, if they buy High Dive, they've cornered at least the market in North America and probably most of Europe.
I wonder if Sony is anticipating the I assume these are Blu-rays, right? That they're
yeah.
I wonder if Sony is anticipating Blu-ray seeing a revival in the way vinyl has. Right?
I still buy all
vinyl,
Blu-ray.
or vinyl collections they've been huge in the last 5 years because of collectors. Like collectors want that thing that they can touch, so they can skip to the prices on vinyl are really high. So I wonder if Sony is thinking people will move back into that direction when everything is at the touch. When the vast majority of media is at the touch of your finger.
It's a bigger thing in anime because with anime, you never know when one of these companies is going to lose the license back to Japan, or like they're going to decide to drop something. So getting physical media is a lot more of a thing
That's true.
Because we don't like losing the stuff that we like. So
I was reading of the saga of Harmony Gold and all the stuff that they did with Robotech and stuff over the years.
Robotech gods, yeah.
Fascinating to me. They're just a company that exists to sue people, apparently. You know?
Yep.
Speaking of things that are fascinating and horrible at the same time, let's do a little social media madness.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Congress, but
that's
okay.
a good. Ooh, that's good too.
All right. So, of course, the big thing we talked about last week was Batgirl being canceled. And first off, the Ocho Dorle Parley
ODPH.
Okay, the ODPH podcast said it's a BS move.
So does Kevin Smith.
Very distinct.
He's going after them too.
He's going after them.
Kevin Smith savages Warner Brothers for dropping finished Latina Batgirl movie.
It's not finished though. That's the thing. It's close to finish, but not
really
finished.
Close to finish.
Yeah.
Random Randy Savage came out and said, "Okay, please allow my tinfoil hat idea for just a second. But I believe Discovery, Warner Brothers, is going to lean more towards traditional values when it comes to comics, meaning only alpha males will be heroes and girls will be sidekicks for love interests. With the cancellation of the Batgirl, but no word on the Flash after the domestic terrorist star is in the wind, I find it hard to believe that the makers of Honey Boo Boo and the Sarah Palin Show have plans that are inclusive. This would have been incredibly unlikely in previous years, but after one news, dick fingers around news, God, network spewed another, I can't help but think this is how you get children while they are young. I told you I was crazy sounding. Oh my God, Randy.
These are the words of a madman, but I think he's necessarily wrong.
So
I think there's some logic to what he's talking about.
No, because they're still going to do Wonder Woman.
Hold on. Are they? Look at what their presentation was. Their presentation was saying HBO skews male, Discovery skews female. Like, people are fighting whether that's sexist or not, but if their numbers say that, I get where it's coming from.
Yeah.
So they could be thinking along those lines.
I don't know. Wonder Woman, you can't say
Wonder
84 because it was streaming.
It was streaming, and that's the thing is you can write, and they don't like that. They think these are all that could have made a killing at the box office.
It could have. I think because the first one did. I think the second one would have made a killing just on the property alone.
Before people realized it wasn't a great movie. But like, we don't know. We don't know what David Zaslav really values as far as film goes. Everyone is speculating, and they're basing things based on like these early moves, but nobody really knows yet what he's going to do. We're all guessing.
So, John, you brought up the Kevin Smith thing. We talked about it a little bit last week. He said he went off on his podcast, the Hollywood Babylon, about it, because that's also when he revealed that he was working on a project that got canceled. I do think it's weird that him and some other people are concentrating on the fact that it was a Latina actress playing Batgirl. Like, I really don't think that has anything to do with it. This goes back to...
It's a bad look.
It's
a bad. I'm going to say two things about it. I really think it was purely a business decision for something that was going to go strictly to HBO Max that did not do well in test audiences. It was like, okay, this might hurt us more than help us bring in subscribers. But it's a bad look, again, and Randy just said it, when you're still on the fence about canceling your Flash movie, and this guy's literally going around.
He just got arrested. Like, this dude is... This movie must be fantastic. Like, this better be like the greatest action movie of all.
The thing is, if you read some of the articles I sent, we'll talk about it, like, out of everything that they sent to test audiences, this went the highest.
So they must believe in it. Hopefully they can just kill him at the end. Hopefully they can then, it's in continuity. There is precedence for getting rid of Barry Allen.
Yeah.
But before we bring in Wally.
Might be the move.
Before we bring in Wally, I was going to say, but like, that's the whole thing. You said it. It's a bad look because one starred a woman and the other stars a man. One starred a minority. The other stars white. I guess he's white. I don't know. Was Ezra Miller?
Ezra Miller is white. He does one is the Flash, one is Batgirl. One is like, there's a lot more money wrapped into it. I mean, having not seen either movie, I don't know. I think a lot more of what they want to do hinges on this Flash movie, though. I think that's the problem.
Right. But it also... to Randy's point, they could have put more money into Batgirl as well and made that a theatrical movie. Were they so afraid to take a chance.
Because I think because it sucks, or I think they don't. I think they don't.
No, but I'm saying it was only a $70 million project as opposed to a $300 million project.
When you're trying to cut tens of millions of dollars, when you're trying to cut billions of dollars, 70 here, 30 there, it adds up.
Yeah.
If you don't believe, I mean, like clearly they just don't believe in this at all, and oftentimes they're not wrong with these things. Like if they say this movie is bad, we're not going to release it. It's rare.
Yeah. I mean, if the people who made it, if the people who made Batman v Superman says this movie's bad, it's probably bad.
But is it rare for them to, is it rare for them to make an entire movie before they realize that it's crap?
No, they don't know it's crap until you made it. Making movies is hard, right? You don't know. You can have inklings, but Star Wars sucked until the second cut. Right? I mean, that movie was terrible until they hired another editor.
I mean, I think, honestly, probably New Mutants should have never seen the light of day.
New Mutants probably never should have seen the light of day. But I mean, there were jerks in podcasts that were demanding it get released. Yeah, this happens all the time. Movies get made, they never get released. There's a very famous Jerry Lewis movie called The Day the Clown Cried.
Oh my God.
Oh no, I've seen that one.
No, you haven't. No one's seen it. No one's seen it.
No, I swear I've seen it.
You think you've seen it. You've seen pictures of it.
There is a copy.
No,
there is a copy that is in the Library of Congress
that no one has seen but Jerry Lewis's friends, that he would show on occasion at his house. Jerry Lewis said, okay, this didn't work. And so for those who don't know, the Day the Clown Cried is about a clown in Auschwitz.
Yes.
Right. Who I believe that the story is the final scene ends with him trying to make the kids feel better as he leads them to the gas chamber. And everyone kind of said, yeah, you might have missed the mark on this one. And even Jerry Lewis said, yeah, no, and this was like a pet project of his that he said, this will never see the light of day. It's hard. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes you think you're making a good movie and you go back and you're like, this thing sucks. Like nobody goes out to make a bad movie. Like having made a bad movie, like it's hard. You think you're doing the right thing the whole time. But then like at some point you're like,
I was thinking of King Comedy.
That's not King Comedy. Yeah. No, The Day the Clown Cried is literally the movie I talked about. So,
I listed here 1972 Helmet Dork and Uncompleted Unreleased.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of movies like that. Neither The Magnificent Ambersons has famously never been finished, but it got released because Wells ran out of money. Like, I mean, there's a lot of movies like that never really.
The Fantastic Four, the original Fantastic Four,
that was never supposed to be released. And this, this one they can make money on. Hey, Astro. This one they can make money on it in the interim by just claiming a loss.
Yeah.
Claim a loss. And then they can release it years later. Then they can throw it on HBO Max. Right now, they stand to gain a lot. If you're in cost cut mode, they stand to gain more. If it's a product they don't believe in, they stand to gain more by filing as a loss. And is it ethical? No. But I'm not justifying what they're doing. I'm just telling you what they're doing.
Yes.
Wow.
The other thing,
it's a bad look, no doubt. Bad look.
Very much so. The other thing we talked about, of course, the release the Snyder Cut was fueled by bots in one of the most grand conspiracies ever.
Missed an opportunity to title that episode "Release the Snyder Bots." I'm very disappointed in myself.
To which Gorilla Brain Podcast said, "The world never needed this cut, but it exists, so here we are. Yeah. It's a one-time watch at best."
Yeah, I think we all kind of came to that conclusion watching the movie. We were like, "Oh, this is better than I thought." I'm never going to watch it again, but it's better than I thought. The
Recasted Podcast said, "Doesn't surprise me. Does any movie need 22 more hours of footage?"
Snyder Cut.
It felt that way.
The Magnificent Ambersons.
And Y2KNW said, "I wasn't interested in the regular cut to start with. This different version even less so." So, yeah, we watched it.
We watched. I mean, we had to.
We had to. Yes.
You two know. Why two know? I don't know. I gotta know what he's trying to say.
Okay, this next one's interesting. Did we not report, it was on Deadline, that Batman 2 had gotten greenlit?
I swear to God, we covered it. The Batman 2 was greenlit. I don't know what's up with that. IGN's a trusted source, though.
Yes, and Casson Warren said, WBD has hard evidence that The Batman was a hit and was received well by critics, but hasn't officially greenlit The Batman 2. If you want to follow the Marvel path, this is the best franchise to start it. Since the Nolan films, they've been hits.
I don't disagree with what he's saying, but they got the TV. Okay, so they're doing the TV show, right? The Penguin show. That's a thing at HBO Max. So perhaps they're just waiting till that gets. I mean, it's weird. It's very, very weird. But again, it was in the middle. Like oftentimes when you have major mergers, the new folks aren't into what the old folks are doing. So I don't know.
Literally everybody within hours and maybe a few days, they're all saying Batman 2 sequel not yet greenlit at Warner Brothers. And it looks like somebody, it went around that it was greenlit, and now everybody's saying nope, not greenlit yet, reportedly years away.
Conspiracy theory, I think this might be Matt Reeves' people who released this because they're trying to leverage themselves into being greenlit.
I think so.
They're traveling, or was it they're Deadpooling it?
Oh, kind of. I mean, it's not like it's not like it's heard before. Like these people utilize media to get the word out so they can spin narratives and control things. Like it's Hollywood 101, you know?
Speaking of conspiracy theories, John.
Okay.
Did you know that JD and I have a love child?
Yeah, thanks, Ray.
No.
So Ray from the Gorilla Brain podcast was apparently going through social media and an Amazon book ad came up.
This is actually one of the worst looking Amazon book ads I've ever seen.
This guy looks like JD and Dave from Superhero Speak had a baby. Yes, this pic was from Amazon Books ad.
What eldritch horror did he make a pact with to have that happen?
I mean, this ad is terrible. Like, I don't look at these fonts. Like as a graphics teacher, I'm gonna tell you this is terrible.
My God, the kerning is incredibly bad.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
I'm not gonna cry. Not gonna cry. I'm crying. Yeah.
Guy does look kind of like this.
I was about to say, JD, you said it does. Ray said, "Hey, I'm here for it, guys, but I gotta ask, who seems more likely to give birth, you or Dave?" And then it started getting weird. JD said, "I got those childbirth and hips."
Like Baron, I got them childbearing. Oh, I did say, yeah, I got those childbearing hips.
I mean, started there.
Ray said, "I don't know. I could see Dave pushing out a baby with his feminine cheekbones turning rosy red and his hair a mess dripping with sweat."
Spoken like a man who's actually been in a birthing room. Appreciated on that one.
Which you laughed at, JD.
It's funny.
You talked about Dave having too much pride on your last episode. I wonder, epidural or no? JD said definitely. See, you realize I was reading this and I'm like, just make it stop. Just make it stop.
Oh, I know. I was making you uncomfortable, so I knew this. I knew you weren't happy. So I had to keep
this is becoming disturbingly vivid. But man, is it accurate from Ray? And I said, and then I finally chimed in. I would like it stated for the record, I love JD as a friend, and that is all. Which then Ray said, no one ever said love was involved, Dave. You can make babies without love and 110% hormones. And then you ended it with Mr.
Burns. It's
Burns.
It's when they're leaving the nuclear shelter after Smithers kisses him, and Bernie goes, "Oops," and Burns kind of gives him a look. It's one of my favorite facial expressions in history. So I default to that a lot on Twitter when I'm done with the conversation.
Yeah.
That went nowhere.
That was bad.
I'm not helping that one.
Oh, I no problem throwing gas in the fire. So Snyder in DC.
Oh, okay. So
that fire, I'll happily throw gas.
We got a couple of tweets from our good friend Kassan Warren. He said, Superhero Speak, Snyder won't come back to DC. He has his own project with Netflix called Rebel Moon. From what I've seen, it's visually stunning with potential. Everything Snyder makes is visually stunning, but it has no story.
Exactly.
And then he also said, because we also talked about James Gunn. Obviously, he was sending these as he was listening to the episode. You can tell. Last comment. I like what James Gunn did with Peacemaker. A nice blend of humor, violence, and character development. And his handling of the Harley show is top notch. I like to see what he could do with the main characters. So he's in agreement that Gunn could be their Kevin Feige.
Gunn's good.
Yeah. So if you want to be like our good friend Kassan and comment while you're listening to the episode, here's a good friend D Square to tell you how you can get more superhero speak. Follow us on social media and be part of Social Media Madness.
Enjoying the show? Want to be part of Social Media Madness? Make sure you are following superheroespeak.com, where you can find all of the show's social media links at the top of the page. While you're there, you can check out old episodes of the podcast as well as some other great content. Check the site often because we are posting some great comic reviews as well as comic book and movie news content every day. Make sure and follow us on Twitter at Superhero Speak. And while you're there, check out the rest of the Geek World All-Stars Podcast Network. You can follow them at Stars _geek. The Geek World All-Star Podcast Network include great programs such as the Pop Prison Power Podcast, Cult 45, So Wizard, Fans on Patrol, the Gorilla Brain Podcast, and of course, Superhero Speak. Search for hashtag GWAllstars. You will not be disappointed. Now it's back to Dave and the boys on Superhero Speak.
All right, thanks for that, Don. And don't forget to check out the Omega Level Nerds podcast, available on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with the news.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
All right, we really only have one thing to talk about.
Only one worth talking about. Only
and it's
one.
Still DC. And so we'll start with Miller he was charged. Was he actually arrested in Connecticut?
Oh, yes.
Felony burglary. He broke into someone's house and stole alcohol.
Jesus.
That happened like the day after we recorded. Like that came out. I'm like, he's the car crash that keeps on crashing.
Oh, yeah. It's not going to end well. This whole story doesn't end well.
No, you're right.
Which then led into an article where apparently Miller has been going to do reshoots for The Flash in between all of this going on. So serious question. Does that not make Warner Brothers or the people making this film a little culpable? Like when he was on the run, but he was showing up to do reshoots, like shouldn't they have called the cops and said, we've got him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. This is just yet another, and I hate to say it this way, yet another fuck up by WB. Like if they can screw up, they're going to do it.
Here's the question. Does the studio actually know they're doing this? Is this the director doing stuff on their own? Because we know Snyder was doing his own reshoots.
It could be, but either way, like somebody's got to be like,
oh yeah, no, somebody's culpable. I don't know if it's the director. I don't know if it's the studio. I don't know. I have no idea who's responsible, but somebody is. This guy's a danger to everyone around him.
And I'm reading the article, and it's like his mother was there too, like keeping an eye on them. And it's just like, seriously, like that made it okay? His mommy's there, like
it's weird, man.
So
it's weird.
Which then leads us into Warner Brothers developing a contingency plan for Flashpoint.
And this is something I've seen in certain corners, and I know it doesn't sound serious yet, but there is a growing movement to get Grant Gustin to replace Ezra Miller.
Yes, I forgot I was going to include that. Like, there's an actual petition that's got millions of signatures now to have Grant Gustin replace him. So you read the article with the contingency plan. It says like a 3-prong thing.
One, bury our heads in the sand and hope nobody notices.
No, it's like have Miller come out, apologize, and go into rehab, which is funny. I've heard other people speculating like that's going to be their move.
But that's a move from the 1940s. Like,
if that doesn't work, then
still the move.
Miller's not involved at all with
the Betty Ford
promotion for the show, for the movie. Like all the other actors will promote it, but not Ezra Miller. And then finally, or we'll just shelve it. Like I think you're at the shelve it point. Like
I don't think I can.
I know there's too much money involved in it.
I think this movie has far too much like writing out as far as like what they're doing in the future.
They're damned if they do and damned if they don't.
I do too. I agree. They're screwed either way. They can't scrap the whole movie because, like I said, they can't remake it. Like they just got to kind of own it.
But I don't know how can you digitally replace him?
No, not from the whole movie.
Come on, they digitally removed the mustache and looked wonderful.
That's the thing. There's your proof of why we can't digitally remove the lead actor.
Not gonna happen.
No, I mean they're screwed. But that's Zack Snyder's lasting legacy on this is the casting of Ezra Miller.
So at the end of the movie, they just, like you said, they either get rid of Barry Allen and he hands it out over to Wally West, or the other thing that changed in Flashpoint was who Barry Allen was, and it's Grant Gustin or whatever. I don't hold up much hope for Grant Gustin.
They were gonna do a bait and switch. Well, not bait and switch. They're gonna do like all of a sudden he screwed time up and it was Michael Keaton as Batman all along instead of Ben Affleck. So it's kind of like, well, then why can't at the end it just be even if it's not Grant Gustin, this new actor shows up. It's like, Barry, you look a little different.
Which has been done before. I mean,
They should just kill him. They should just kill Barry. Should die at the end of this movie, and then Wally replaces him. Just do like they did in the comics.
Like if they do that, though, that's the end of the Snyderverse, and they're going to have to, then they do their 10-year plan with all new actors. And
isn't that the plan anyway?
I guess so. I mean, but the point of Flashpoint is to reboot it. So,
but you got to they're trying to end it. Like they're doing it as DC as possible. Like they're not, instead of just rebooting it, they're telling you how they're rebooting it. Like they're giving it a storyline reason. That's just what they're trying to follow kind of what DC does. And they're running the same problems DC does.
As in, like, okay, we're comic fans. We get that. This is what DC does, right? Marvel just tries to retcon anything they didn't like, where DC's like, we destroy the universe and we start again. But the normies, right? The non-comic fans that watch these movies, they all of a sudden see Ben Affleck come back for a movie. And if they're into the Snyderverse, doesn't that give them false hope that, they're going to, he's back?
Unless the movie erases it, unless the movie takes care of it. Like I said, I think they just spent too damn much money,
Yeah.
They just spent a lot of, like, you can shelve a $70 million movie. I don't know if you can shelve a $300 million one.
No, probably not.
That's quite the tax write-off.
I mean, like it is, but I mean, is the write-off going to, I mean, like, that's a lot of money. Now you're talking $400 million together. Got to put something out.
Is there anything reported on the budget for Flashpoint?
But the thing with the Flashpoint being used as a reboot, the characters are always, they still exist after Flash, after the Flashpoint. So you still have Barry Allen, you still have Batman, but if they're going to make Batman old, and
they don't have to,
right? Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If they make this like the end of the Snyderverse, where they just have old Batman and Ezra Miller dead at the end, then you haven't done a Flashpoint. You've just ended that universe, right?
The Crisis, it becomes a Crisis, but I think Flashpoint is probably a more marketable title than Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah,
right. Which is kind of what and Flashpoint was a successful book a decade ago, and I didn't care for it, but it's got a name, and Jeff Johns' fingerprints are still all over it. Who really blame us is Jeff Johns, because we had like progression in the DC Comics universe until Jeff Johns took over, and then he brought back the Silver Age. Now I blame him for this entire mess in so many ways, shapes, and forms. All Jeff Johns.
No, I agree. And just can I ask a question?
No.
How many times are you going to retell and redo Flashpoint?
Just the one.
No. They did it once in the comics. They have the animated movie based on the comics.
But they've also used a Flashpoint to reboot
There was a
Justice League War, right?
Flashpoint. They used it again there. They used it on. It was done on the TV show. They did Flashpoint.
I thought that was the Crisis. They did that on the TV.
No, they did Crisis.
They did Crisis and they did Flashpoint. He went back. And
they did Flashpoint
mother.
Before Crisis, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like enough with Flashpoint. Okay, it was an okay idea. It was executed fairly well, but there's other DC stories that we can do, right? Like,
I mean, at this point, they're using it like Doctor Who's Regeneration, except they're overusing it.
Well, I mean, like at the same time, they've never done it for like the main audience, right? Like movie-going audience has never seen it, and if they think it's a really good story, I disagree. But the idea of I think the hook of the Flashpoint is Old Man Batman.
Yeah.
Right? That's what Flashpoint gave us. Flashpoint gave us the old Batman.
The darker Batman.
Well, I mean,
Batman's the one that uses guns instead of. Oh wait.
I mean, like he does. No, that's
wait a minute.
It gives us Old Man Batman. That's what they want.
They can do Flashpoint in the movie, and then when Batman comes back, he doesn't use guns.
Yeah. What a twist.
Well, they're also, it's not Thomas, it's Bruce, right? It's just old Bruce. So,
and he doesn't kill people. Yes, let's do that.
That Batman killed him. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing at this point, and I don't even know if they know what they're doing.
Probably not.
No. More so on that is they're still got the Black Canary movie in development.
Okay, with Journey Smollett.
Who?
Journey. That's who played her in.
Oh yeah. Same actress. Yes. Yeah. Why? Like,
she's good. She's really good in.
She was good, but is anyone asking for a Black Canary movie? Seriously,
if it's like $30 million, just in development doesn't mean anything's happening with it.
I know.
But how does it fit in with everything else? Like, I mean,
they don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how it fits in. That's the thing. Nobody knows what's going on.
How did that Harley Quinn movie fit in with anything else in it? Really?
Well, that was the 2 or 3 months that they were like, oh, we're just going to do all these movies as separate now.
We have another
something.
Harley Quinn too. We have another Harley Quinn coming.
That's right. Lady Gaga
Gaga's
in
going
a
to be
musical Joker sequel that no one wants.
I'm sorry. So I'm not the only one that's like, I'm not really interested at all in like paying money to see that.
We were very meh on the Joker movie to begin with. It is not for us, right? This Joker movie, these Joker movies are
for an Oscar.
For Oscar consideration, right? That's what it is. This is their
but then to make the second one a sequel, like I mean, make the second one a musical. Make the second one a musical. Like, does that make any sense?
Does it, Todd Phillips? I mean, like the whole point of it might be to not make sense, right? It's probably just a fever, like Joker's fever dream.
Yeah, but like that only works in another encompassing context, and just on its own, it becomes, DC's Fantasia, basically.
Hey man, and that might be what they're going for.
Oh, that reminds me.
I'm not saying it's going to be good. I'm just telling you what it is.
Yeah, true.
Speaking of Joker and Harley Quinn.
Oh my God, what else can they screw
I
up?
had an idea. I wanted to float out there. What if we redid Harley Quinn's origin story?
Don't touch the Bruce Timm origin
what do you mean redid the origins?
Okay, so obviously the toxic relationship between Harley and Joker doesn't work today, right? Like,
well, but in the comics, it's changed. She's become a hero since then.
Yeah, no, I think it does work. I think it's necessary. I think that you have to have the toxic relationship because, like, she's become a character of strength because of that.
Listen,
yeah.
What if you flipped the script and made it that she can still be his doctor or his psychologist, like that part doesn't change. But he tries to kill her with Joker venom, and she survives it. That's what bleaches her skin, though, and that makes Joker fall in love with her because she didn't die, and he becomes obsessed with her.
That's kind of the original plot, and they already did that in.
No, she's obsessed with him. Like that's the original story.
She was obsessed with that. Was the whole point. It was an abusive relationship that she wouldn't leave because she was obsessed with him.
Right, but now you make it where she doesn't want him, but he's obsessed with her.
I have zero interest.
Yeah, that was the second phase of their relationship that's already passed by in the comics, where she grew up and grew away from him.
I actually think that origin, as problematic as it is, works because it's problematic, because it's true to life, because there are people who are in toxic relationships, and the Harley Quinn character can empower people.
Yeah.
Right? Because she has become an anti-hero of sorts, not just a villain. Right. And she's got this relationship with Poison Ivy now that's become more mainstream. And I think that there's a lot of interesting development in the Harley Quinn character that came from a super problematic idea. But just because something is problematic doesn't mean it should be avoided. Right. Problematic stuff exists in fiction because problematic stuff exists in real life.
This is true. Yeah. All right. It was just an idea.
It's not. I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's something you could absolutely do in like a DC Elseworlds kind of thing, like similar to like the White Knight story where Joker is Batman.
Right.
That's been super popular. I think that could work, but I wouldn't want to see it as become like the origin of Harley Quinn in DC proper.
Right.
I think there's just too much. I think the benefits of her struggles can outweigh the negatives if portrayed in the right way. And I think that was one of the issues with the original Suicide Squad movie is they don't steer into it enough. Right. Is they don't really talk about the fact that she's in this negative relationship. So you had all these dorks going around going, oh, I want a relationship like Harley Quinn and Joker. And you're like, no, you don't. Like they didn't play into it enough. Like they really did a disservice to the Harley Quinn character, which is remedied in the Birds of Prey movie,
Well, it was also Jared Leto. But
Jared Leto sucks. So, God, his Joker is the worst thing in a universe full of bad stuff. The Jared Leto Joker is like, it sticks out as being just terrible. Like there's so many great Joker performances that we had to have a bad one, but his is so bad.
All right. Well, on that note, let's take a quick commercial break and come back with our main topic.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
All right. Let us begin. So, we talked about it last week a little bit. JD said, let's cover it on the podcast next week. So, of course, we're talking about 1993, is it? Yeah, 1993's Arnold Schwarzenegger opus,
Magnum opus, I would
Magnum
say.
opus. The
Well, there
last
were a lot of
action hero.
magnums in it. Yes, they used a lot of magnum guns.
Okay, so obviously I've seen this movie. I've seen this movie a couple times, and I didn't realize how many like jokes and tropes and things I remembered from this movie came from this movie. Like the whole 555 thing, like that always comes to mind when I watch stuff where it's like, "What's your phone number?" Oh, 555-1346. You know, wait, everyone can't start with 555. Oh, that's why we have area codes. Like,
great line.
So, what did you guys? Obviously, I don't know when the last time you watched it was, but what did you think rewatching it now? What came to your mind? Was it enjoyable? Did you hate it?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I still like this movie a lot. I liked it a lot. I think I saw it in '94. Like we missed it at the theater because like the negative buzz, and I don't think my parents rented it either. I'm pretty sure I saw it on HBO, and I loved it as a 14-year-old kid that really liked movies. Right, I got it right away. I got what they were going for, and at 40 something, like that was really able to transfer my brain back into that spot of like wonder, right? Because this movie is a lot about, you know, the innocence of wonder, and like, and when fantasy is pulled into reality, how it destroys fantasy. Like it's so meta, and that really wasn't a thing in 1993. It was way ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a great commentary on action films of the 1990s and 80s, specifically the 1980s, right? Like I think it holds up. I think it's better than it was in 1993.
John?
Well, I just watched it like a few hours ago.
Uh-huh.
So
have you seen it before?
Yeah, I'd seen it before. It's better than I remember. A lot of things we've reviewed have been better than I remember, actually. But, you know, that's what happens when you go from old black and white movies to new versions. It has some issues. I think it was a little bit too long, and it could have cleaned up a lot. But yeah, I agree with JD that it was a little bit ahead of its time. Like now everybody's about meta commentary and self-deprecating humor, and you know, Deadpool's leading the charge on that, and now everybody's trying to copy that. But this had it way back when, and it was, I think it feels unpolished, like it could have probably used another rewrite and cut a few scenes, but the bones are there, and it's still worth watching just because it makes more sense now than it did then to watch it. You know, like you get more now. Like they pointed out everything except the Wilhelm scream, you know, and I don't even. That's one of the few movies I think I've ever watched that didn't have a Wilhelm scream in it. But other than that, and the kid actor was not great. You know, he was always yelling. You know, his voice got a little ragged. It got annoying at the end, and he could have used a little bit more direction. But again, overall, it's worth watching as kind of a wow. You know, it still points out all the stuff that's really interesting now that it did back then. But now I think the audiences are more mature. I think the movies we make these days are a little bit more mature, and you know, they don't lean so much on stuff like, oh, you know, the unending bullet gun and that sort of thing. And now it's kind of, it's more funny to point that stuff out.
So, like, I definitely agree with both you guys. This movie was way ahead of its time. And if you like really break down the ideas in this movie and what it's doing, it's brilliant. Like, but the problem I could see, especially for a 1993 audience, was, and it's funny because it's written by some of the best action movie writers and directed by one of the biggest action movie directors. But the whole thing is the movie within the movie, the action movie is so over the top, but that's done on purpose.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah. Like, but I can see why people that are an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan and who went and watched Predator and the Die Hard movies and all that would get upset at this, making fun of that, the way that it did so hard in this movie.
There was a lot of pointless stuff in it too. Like, I mean, they had so many cameos, but the cameos didn't really make sense in the construct of what they were trying to do with the movie, the commentary they're trying to
I think that's
give to us.
I think that's a commentary on cameos in movies, because at the time you were having a lot of people show up. Like, remember Sean Connery showing up at the end of Robin Hood? You know,
Oh yeah.
Like, you had a lot of movies that happened in the early 90s where actors were just getting cameos that kind of made no sense. So I think these were, like, again, a lot of this movie is a wink and a nod. And again, to a 1993 audience, I don't think they were ready to make fun of what they liked. Like, I think they're a little bit of that Snyderism, if you will, where if you're laughing at this thing that I like, you're making fun of me.
Well, like, and there's some cameos like you blink and you miss them.
Well, the
Robert
Terminator 2
Patrick walking out of the police station in the same uniform he wore in Terminator 2. You know,
there was one just before that. I forget. It was another cameo just before that.
It's got a lot in common with like a Wayne's, you know.
Yeah.
Speaking of Wayne's World, like the Damon Wayans Chevy Chase cameo, like,
yeah.
Could you see those two hanging out at a movie premiere? I guess. I can't think of anything that they did together.
It's just there to be there. It's like it's a Hollywood send up. And this comes out in a time when Arnold is trying to get away from his action hero image a little bit.
Yes.
And like trying to show his range. Because this is also the era, he comes off of Twins. Everyone's like, man, this guy's a good comedic actor. And he makes Kindergarten Cop, and there's some other comedies.
Twins.
Twins is one I mentioned first. He's done a handful of these, and they're good. They're all pretty good.
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way. That was after this. But I mean, like, he's like really, and I don't think people were expecting that Arnold. I think people were just, because again, I think the marketing campaign was off for this movie. I don't think they sold the meta idea hard enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I think they should have focused on the kid more than Arnold.
If they had a better actor for the kid, or he was better directed. If you go back and you listen, his voice, he's always yelling. Like, it just, and it's always.
I mean, it's John McTiernan directed it. So I mean, like, that's kind of like, he's not known for working with like kids. But again, he's an action. Like, these are all people with bona fide action cred that are trying to make fun of themselves. So I think he's not supposed to be subtle, the kid, but he probably should have been.
Because he's supposed to be from the real world, right?
Yeah, but there's also no, this kid didn't have much of a career after this. Like, he was kind of plucked from obscurity, and the only other thing he really did was a sequel to Die Hard, or the sequel to My Girl. I don't know where I got Die Hard from. Like, he's in I was way off on that. Like, he's in that, and then he kind of disappears, I think, right?
Was it Austin O'Brien?
Austin O'Brien.
Yeah.
Lawnmower Man 2.
That movie sucks.
Oh God, that might as well not exist. Yeah.
Stephen King, very pissed about that one. Sued many an occasion. Like, he's done some stuff, like, but I mean, like, really,
Exactly. But then again, a lot of child actors didn't want to be. Oh, he was in Apollo 13.
Yeah, some whiz kid. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I mean, he did some stuff, and he's been.
Oh, he was in both Lawnmower Mans.
Yeah, he played probably the same kid.
But it's like, nothing since 2015, and even then it was sparse.
Yeah, I mean, like, it didn't quite work, right? And maybe he's not the best casting they could have had, but at the same time, like, maybe that guy wasn't there, right? Like, I don't think he's bad. I think he does the child wonderment thing fairly well, actually. Like, maybe it's not the best traditional performance, but I think he plays a kid overwhelmed fairly well. Like, I believe him. I believe that this is how a 13-year-old kid would act in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, and they can't have anyone out-act Arnold.
That's not true. People have done, like, Arnold always does well when he's against people who are considered stronger actors than him, right?
Yeah.
Like, look back in his career. Like, even Conan, he's against James Earl Jones.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Danny DeVito's a better actor than him, and he really helps elevate his performance in Twins.
And Danny DeVito did the cartoon cat in this. And that, again, that's awesome. Like,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Again, it's so over the top, but again, it's supposed to be. They're making fun of the stuff they did. And again, just, I think, timing,
like when the lieutenant or the captain, I'm sorry, is yelling at him, and like, he's just spouting nonsense. Like, he's not even saying anything.
Like the captain in Lethal Weapon. Like, it's the yelling at him. Again, Shane Black, the guy who created Lethal Weapon, is writing this thing.
Yes.
So it's like, it's cliche. It's intentionally cliche, And again, I guess I just appreciate that stuff, And I love Charles Dance as the villain.
Yeah, yes. No, he was one of the best parts of this.
He's great. He's like, in the real world, the bad guys can win. And you hear that and you're like, damn, he's right. Yeah. And that's a great comment. This is why we watch these over the top action movies.
I was going to say, and then, like, one of the brilliant things about this movie is the over the top action movie, which you're supposed to consider it as gritty or whatever, is taking place in the pristine LA, where the real world is in the actual gritty streets, dirty streets of New York, and it's just like it's such a contrast, and it's done so well. Like
it is.
Yeah.
I think a more modern take of this could have been better, because again, this is really kind of breaking the barrier for this. You didn't really have these like genre bending, super meta pieces of fiction at the time, right? They weren't really in the mainstream. So I don't think they really knew what they were doing. Like this movie kind of treads some new ground. There just isn't, especially in like adult fiction. Like this is a kid's story, right? But it's like made like a Hollywood action movie. But it's really a young adult story.
And this was there nobody else tried to do this, so they didn't really have a template for it.
No, they're figuring, and which is the point. The point was not to have a template, so they didn't really have their head wrapped around it. It's a remarkably noble experiment for a film. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest action star of the time.
The biggest.
Yeah, and willing to like make fun of his career basically by doing this. Like, yeah, I know all the movies I was in were stupid, like that's brilliant. I think one of the only things, and I wanted to ask you guys about this, one of the only scenes that kind of, I want to say bothered me, but just didn't ring true, was when the guy breaks into Danny's apartment when his mom leaves for work, and the guy breaks in. It just did not feel like a real robbery. Like, and like you're trying to make one feel real and one feel fake, and you turn up the hokiness to make the things feel fake. I feel like, I don't know, like it just seemed weird. And I know you can't, it's PG-13 movie, you don't want to like, and it's a kid, you don't want to, and it's the 90s still, but I don't know. I feel like they could have done something to make that crime feel more real.
I mean, they were trying to that was the stinger of, this is the real world. They're trying to show us stakes,
Right.
So
I think this is just a case of them, like I said, they're figuring it out.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in that case in particular, you kind of lean on what you know, and what you know is the stuff you're making fun of. So you kind of, while trying to do a setup of something, in a moment, you actually kind of become that thing, because that's what you know is that thing. Right. Like I said, this movie, it knows what it wants to be, but isn't 100% sure to execute.
That's why I said like another rewrite and cut it down just a little bit, and it would a little bit tighter and better.
I kind of like the flaw. I enjoy watching a piece of art or looking at a piece of art and seeing the flaws in it and judging it, and like it is what it is in my mind. Like, I think sometimes I think that we worry about trying to perfect something instead of just let a thing be a thing, and like, okay, this didn't work, so now things beyond it can work better. Like I said, I don't think they really knew what they were making, and like I said, flaws in films don't bother me. Like things when you try something, when you shoot for the stars and you fall, I kind of respect that. Like I kind of go, okay, this has some bumps, and sometimes those bumps are what makes something I appreciate more, than something that feels like overproduced. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I think they overdo it with the rewrites. They try to make it so perfect and so smooth you lose some character. And I think as character as not of the characters, but character of the film itself. Like I kind of think they wouldn't let that mistake happen now. And I think this movie, because it has that flaw, is maybe a little more interesting as an experiment. Maybe not as a movie in itself, but like as when you're like critiquing or watching a piece of art, to have those little moments, like, I don't know, I kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
I like when things don't work all the way,
Yeah, I don't disagree. But again,
you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong at all. Like, you're totally right. They become what they're making fun of. That is a flaw. But the fact that the flaw is there kind of entertains me.
Yeah, I mean, because they do everything in their power to contrast the two worlds. Like even the simple thing of like, in the movie world, he listens to rock music because that was what everyone did in those movies at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he's in the real world and he's talking to Danny's mom, and there's classical music playing, and he's like, "What is that? Oh, I like that." So it's classical in the real world, it's rock in the movie world. They
do a good job setting up the dichotomies.
Yeah.
Right. And how the real world, it should be a little bit more, but even in the quote unquote real world, it's still a movie world, because
yes.
Well, when the guy, when he shoots the eye and his eye explodes in the real world, and it still explodes and explodes big, that was kind of break in
It is, but
the
again,
continuity they're trying to build.
Yes and no. Like I say, like you're still doing that though. Like it's still a movie. It's still the movie they're making. So you're right, but it still kind of works. I don't know. It still kind of works for me because again, if his brains just splatter out the back of his head, I mean, yeah, that's more real. But then
It's
I don't
not
feel
PG-13.
it's not PG-13. It's also not as fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like part of the movie, part of what I think why this movie works is because it's fun and it's very clearly a YA movie before they knew what YA was.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
Right.
Right. So again, the tropes and idioms of young adult fiction aren't there, but they are, like they got it like 90%.
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at the basic premise of the movie, where it's a ticket that was given to the old projectionist from Harry Houdini, and it was a magic ticket that allowed Danny to go in and out of the real world. There's no explanation or setup of how this works, why it works. There's no consistency in how it really works either, where I do kind of think that's one of those things they wouldn't so much allow nowadays. Like
No, I agree. I think, and here's the thing, is I think they would over-explain the ticket and it works.
Yeah.
Right. I think there had been like a history. We'd have seen a flashback with all the people who have held this ticket. It would have been forged in the heart of a dying star instead of just being
forged in Mount Doom. And of course, when you have a golden ticket that Harry Houdini gave you, the first thing you think of is, I'm going to tear this in two.
Yeah, I always wondered about that too. But I mean, but it makes for a nice shot. So again, it's a movie, like it's fantasy. Like even though we played as reality, it's very clearly a fantasy.
Right.
And I I don't know. I dig the fact that it's magic. We don't have to explain it because like, who's the audience? The audience isn't us. The audience is 13-year-olds.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is part of the problem. I think this movie was marketed in.
Right. It was marketed as an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie, not as a young adult movie that happened to have Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Not as a send up of an Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just like, it's, I think that this movie comes out today. There's differences in it. They market it a lot better, but I don't know if it's better.
I'm trying to think. Were there any big young child actors in the early 90s that could have been a bigger name for Arnold to play off of that may have drawn in a younger crowd?
Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think they wanted that though. I think they wanted they were going for an everyman, I think the fact they were looking for someone unrecognizable is easier because then Arnold is the star. If it's Arnold and Jonathan Brandis, or Jonathan Brandis was none they could have used, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, I think that becomes a star vehicle for the two. Whereas when you put this unknown kid with Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's very easy to have Arnold be the paragon, right? Because he's Arnold.
Right.
And there's this unknown with him. And the risk is maybe the kid's not that great. Jonathan Taylor Thomas, probably a better actor in 1993, but you got the cult of personality around him. And maybe that would have been a better move marketing wise, because he's in a very similar movie at the same time called Page Master about a kid who's jumping into books.
Oh, I remember that. Yep.
Right.
Yes.
It's a very similar movie, but the tone is different. And this one's better, right? Because they took it a little more, even though it's silly, they took it more seriously. So it's a different movie at that point. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's different. Like you almost lose your verisimilitude by casting a star as Danny.
Say that word again.
Verisimilitude.
Verisimilitude.
Yeah. Everybody knows that.
10-cent word of the podcast.
I learned it from the making of Richard Donner Superman. He had that word printed on the set every day.
What's again sesquipedalian vocabulary?
That's why I'm a writer, but I like big words and I cannot lie.
Damn it. That song.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a different movie. It's a totally different movie. If a star is Danny, maybe it works better. I don't know, but it's definitely different at that point.
And if they were to remake it today,
everything is so different now.
Would it work?
I don't think it would.
It's different. We don't have these alpha male action films.
Yeah.
We don't have the old style theaters anymore either.
We don't and they were dying at the time too, which is why that worked because those theaters were becoming a relic of a bygone era. And now Arnold Schwarzenegger, the persona, is a relic of a bygone era. So it becomes a different movie. It becomes a flashback. It becomes a piece of nostalgia as opposed to a piece of social commentary.
Yeah, they've already gone full circle on those kinds of action stars, because look at they're just sticking them in the Expendables now, and even the Expendables is
Right, and that's the thing.
That was a full send up in them.
You make this movie
has a
today.
lot more in common with this than it does a lot of those action films.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly.
You make this movie today, you throw The Rock in it, and then it's like,
and then it's probably easier to get there because The Rock is the guy. Schwarzenegger's career continue, but he's better, right? And he's a little bit easy. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's debatable, but I mean, like The Rock can easily slip into that comedy, and like you kind of get the hint of what he's going for a little bit. That's the move, though. If this was today, it would be The Rock playing that role, but it's different. Like I said, if you did this movie today, just took the same constructs. It's a kid watching something on a DVD, right? That's something that his dad showed him. Because again, he's looking at a relic of a bygone era, and he's brought into like a super wired up version of the past. I wouldn't even say nostalgic, but super like, like imagined, right? Hyper imagined version of the past. It's a different movie. It's actually a fascinating experiment. I would like to see that. What the Last Action Hero movie 2022 would look like,
Yeah.
Curious.
Deadpool. It looks like Deadpool.
It's very, I mean, honestly, the DNA of Deadpool comes through this movie without a doubt.
Because they're making fun of the same things in a lot of them.
Oh, absolutely. Deadpool's, targeting the superhero genre specifically, but a lot of those tropes in canon. Oh, it's probably a superhero movie too. If we talk about Last Action Hero today, the Last Action Hero would probably be a superhero.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would be like a made up, like the
Condor Man, something like
that. These Slater movies.
Man, I remember that one.
Yeah, because that's like we don't have these hyper alpha male, testosterone slugfests anymore. They don't make those. Like they're a product of a bygone era.
Yeah.
We just released a new Predator movie where the hero is like a teenage girl.
Yep. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Me neither. I really want to. I heard great things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of a movie like
the
that.
Marvel movies like that, but the heroes are so much more feet of clay. Like the heroes in the Marvel movie are so much more grounded in reality as far as their character goes than the guys Schwarzenegger played.
They're way more relatable.
Yeah. Because those guys were comic book heroes, or what we would think of in our head of a comic book hero, not what a comic book hero actually is.
Well, a comic book hero as told by a 13-year-old.
Yeah. Where you miss the subtleties.
Right. And the idea of a that's the other thing. The idea of a two-dimensional action hero is not there anymore. No,
intentionally we've moved away. We as a society have moved away from it. Right. That isn't even, and that's kind of, I think this movie is telling us it's time to move away from it.
I mean, even the later movies with Schwarzenegger in it that were action movies, he's more of a rounded character.
I think the very next movie he makes is True Lies. I think that's more of he's more well-rounded of a character than he would be in like Raw Deal or like Commando a decade earlier.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's evolving in the 90s, we do start evolving that stuff. I think this movie is almost like an epitaph of 80s action movies where you're like, okay, this is what these were. It's time to move on. Because it's pointing out the tropes that we all recognize. It's a lot like Scary Movie was in like the late 90s too. And Scary Movie pointed out all the tropes of the horror movie, which had become, the slasher film in particular, had become repopularized because of Scream. Scary Movie is a send up of that, which Scream's basically a send up of those movies that came before it.
Hot Shots.
Hot Shots is another one.
And Hot Shots Part 2.
I love those movies, the Zucker Brothers movies.
Yeah.
They're more slapsticky, where this is. True. This isn't slapstick. Like there's stakes in this movie, right?
Yeah.
It's a comedy, but I mean, like it isn't. I guess it's a fantasy.
It didn't feel like a comedy at any point.
No,
really.
but there's laughter in it. It's almost like the prototype of a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Where you got these fantastical elements, these big action scenes. You're having fun. It's tongue in cheek, but not super tongue in cheek. But there's actual stakes in it. Like, and that's Shane Black. Shane Black's a brilliant writer who has always kind of pushed the limits on what a genre piece could be. The guy who brought us Predator, the guy who brought us Lethal Weapon, the guy that brought us The Monster Squad. Like, this is just kind of how his brain operates. It's a logical extension.
Yeah, that's a good question.
A lot to say in this movie. I'm surprised.
I think I would put that to our audience. If they were to do this movie today, how would you envision it? I'm curious. I know Randy will answer that.
I want to hear what Randy and Ray have to say specifically.
Yeah.
Because they have interesting thoughts. Don too. I want to hear what Don would say. I want to, because those guys have interesting thoughts on these kind of things. Like, I don't know, man. I'm surprised that no one has tried to tackle this again, even in an era where we wax nostalgic on everything, even like cult classics. And I don't know if this movie ever attained like cult classic status.
Well, I mean, it had a budget of 83 million and made,
It was supposed to be a hit, and it was not.
85 million and made 137 million.
So it made money, but I mean, it's still considered like a failure.
Yeah,
because the expectations were just so high.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at like Terminator 2 came out not long before
2 years before.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a huge hit. So
yeah. I just wonder if they weren't ready for this type of Schwarzenegger movie.
No, they weren't. That's, the audience at the time wasn't. Like, again, I do think they went so hard on parodying the action movies with, you had a cartoon cat walking around for Christ's sake,
which we did not see in the trailer. So if you just expected a Schwarzenegger shoot 'em up, you're like, there's a cat, there's a cartoon. I mean,
and a black and white Humphrey Bogart. I mean,
and a black and white Humphrey Bogart. Yeah, I mean, there's just a little, like, your villains are good. Like Tom Noonan and Charles Dance are really good villains in this movie. But I can see it being too much for people in that era.
There's a mob boss who's killed, whose name is literally Fart, and they put a gas bomb in him. And
that was a little bit too on the nose.
But that's what they would have done in those. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean,
just
I know
for the
that
puns, and that's
the names of the women in all of the James Bond movies,
right?
Pussy galore.
Pussy galore. Can you believe they got away with that?
No, I don't.
Stunning. They made a movie called Octopussy.
Yeah,
that was the title.
We're talking about octopuses. What's wrong with the sea creatures? Come on now.
Oh dear goddess.
Your mind's in the gutter.
Did nobody have that talk with you? No, never mind.
We've all seen a James Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
We're lucky he didn't have sex with an octopus.
Oh my God. Some of the stuff that I've heard Sean Connery has said off camera, I mean off set, about women and stuff, and like, oh, that makes more sense now.
Oh, I bet he was super misogynist. I mean,
oh yeah, no, but he was old school. Like,
yeah, the vast majority of
he said something along the lines of like, sometimes a woman deserves a slap, and like he would never take that comment back. Like viewers have asked him.
I have heard that.
And he's like, no, sometimes they do, and it was just like, okay.
I mean, the first movie I remember seeing him in was Darby O'Gill and the Little People in 1959. So like he was of that era.
I mean, that's the thing. Is like your grandpa says things that embarrass you sometimes. They're from. We cannot hold dead people in particular to the standards that people have today. You just have to kind of go, well, it's what the world was like back then. It had problems. It had problems.
Yes, it did.
I think we've beaten this.
Yeah.
Have we?
So worth a watch. I'd say it's worth a watch for, people that are interested in that type of meta commentary.
I'm surprised this movie has not found a new life, to be honest with you.
Hey, maybe it starts here.
Maybe.
Oh, wouldn't that be weird if all of a sudden
we finally got something going?
Yeah.
And it's this movie.
And one last thing was, I can't think of his name. The Van Damme cameo.
Oh gods. Yeah.
That was, I just wanted to say that was a weird moment in the movie where he makes a joke about, gotta support number 2. Like, people forget there was like a weird rivalry between the two of them for like top action hero. And then it's like,
well, because it supplanted the rivalry between Stallone and Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
There's a couple of different movies where they take little shots at each other. Like, remember in Twins where they say, in this movie even too, the Terminator 2, Stallone is the role in that universe. Like, there's always been that thing with the two of them, right? But then Stallone decided he was going to make like real movies,
right?
He got away. I think that's why this movie could be made, because Stallone decided around the same time period, I'm not going to make these like super brainless alpha action movies anymore,
right?
Because again, not too long. I think he's in the process of developing Copland at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, that sounds about right. That would be the right timing.
So I mean,
remember, the guy started out writing Rocky.
Rocky's not an action. Rocky is not a typical action movie.
No, it's not. It's a drama. He loses. It's not an action movie.
Rocky is not the movie people think it is. People think of Rocky and their brain goes like Rocky 4. That is not the original Rocky film.
No. Right. So it makes sense that he would go back to wanting to do that stuff. Yeah. But it was just so weird. And then it just made me go like, whatever happened to Van Damme? Like,
he did some stuff, and like, it's Van Damme, man. He wasn't as good as those other. Like Schwarzenegger, say what you want about him, he had this presence,
yes,
right? Like there's a charisma to Arnold Schwarzenegger, a likability.
Van Damme
For all
also
his
used
flaws.
to kick his stunt people or whatever.
Van
like-
Damme's a dick. Like people actually like Schwarzenegger. Like
yeah.
no one likes Van Damme. Or like same with Steven Seagal. People hate Steven Seagal. Like
Oh,
Yeah.
Steven Seagal's a train wreck and a train
Yeah.
wreck. He's
so on the grand scheme of things, Schwarzenegger very well liked. Van Damme, he liked his movies, but kind of a dick. And then there's Seagal.
who is buddy with Kim Jong Un.
Putin and living with like dictators. Like, this is great.
I know someone that
Yeah.
doesn't like Schwarzenegger, and she
Who's that?
cameoed in this movie.
Who's that?
Oh, his ex-wife.
His ex-wife.
Oh
Maria
yeah,
Shriver.
Maria Shriver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Personal lives.
Oh,
Oh dear.
I banged the microphone. That just
Yeah.
sounds worse than it is.
I liked this movie. I'm glad we got to revisit it.
Yes.
I
And
liked
it's a
it too.
retro review. We won't do a score on it. If you haven't seen this movie, shame on you. Go see it. It's a good,
I'd love to. I would
good
just.
meta commentary on 80s action movies. It's a good commentary on life.
I'm actually
really.
curious to see social media when you post this stuff. I want to hear what people say about this because it's so out of the public consciousness that I just wonder.
I think because it got panned too when it came out.
It got.
And I
Nobody
think
got it.
people are just automatically like, oh, that was a terrible movie. And it's like,
Yeah.
have you gone back and watched it? Seriously. Like,
Yeah, people just assume it was bad.
And
right?
and people that like reviewers that I usually follow about these things and use as a sounding board to see what ideas they had about it. Like even the Nostalgia Critic like completely destroyed it in like 2009, I think was when he did his review, and it was like, it sucks. It's like, no, I think you missed the point. And I'm not sure if that is just because of the viewpoint of what age I am now, or the age we are living in, or or whatever.
I think it's a combination of things too, because I also do believe, and I'm not putting down the Nostalgia Critic, I just think it's an internet thing where it's like,
oh yeah,
I know this opinion is on this thing is popular, so as long as I repeat this opinion, I'll get views and clicks.
Well, the thing is, like, the Nostalgia Critic, again, the Nostalgia Critic now is not anything like the Nostalgia Critic then.
Yeah.
Like, I think he might have had more kind of our opinion now, if he did the review now, than he did in 2009, right?
Yeah,
So
probably. Yeah, especially early YouTube, early internet. It was just like,
right.
what gets me the most clicks and likes? Yeah, so I can grow an audience. It wasn't about being genuine, like JD is every
or being deep and thoughtful. So,
All right, well, that's a good place to put a pin in it. Oh, sorry, stretching. So let's go around the room. Let's see, do you have any recommendations, or did you learn something on the podcast this week? John, you can go first.
that would mean I have to listen to the podcast to learn something from it. You think I listen even during the podcast? No. I mean, I think this discussion of this movie was actually pretty good. I had forgotten how much more interesting this movie was than when I first saw it way back when, probably on VHS, maybe. I'm not sure when I saw this movie first. Otherwise, as far as recommendations is concerned, the new book series that I'm reading now by Benedict Jacka, Jacka.
Hell of a name.
Yeah, well, that's his real name.
That's an awesome name. I'm
and
jealous.
His main character's name is Alex Veras, and he's pulling a Harry Dresden, and he's written a crap ton of books on the Alex Veras novels, and they're well worth a read. They're like one of the top urban fantasy series around right now.
Cool. All right, JD.
I ain't learned nothing. No, it's not true. I learned that we can appreciate stuff a joke that might not have landed 30 years ago might hit different if you revisit it with some different eyes. I'm going to recommend Prey, even though I haven't seen it yet, because I hope we can all watch it together. I'm hearing really good things. Like, I love the idea. I know people are mad. They're like, how is a Native American kid going to beat the Predator when a bunch of military guys couldn't do it? And I'm like, did you not watch the first Predator movie? That was the entire point. Was that Arnold couldn't beat it until he abandoned technology and had to outsmart it. Like, that's literally the point of the movie Predator. So people are dumb. But I really want to see Prey.
Okay.
Of the brainless action movies, I think Predator might be the best because it's not brainless. It fools you into thinking it's brainless.
Predator 2, a little bit more brainless.
Predator 2 is
a
brainless,
little bit less.
I do like Danny Glover. And Gary
Yeah.
Busey is a lunatic in it, so I have a soft spot for Predator 2.
Was it Gary Busey who was supposed to be Arnold? They tried to get Arnold Schwartz. No, it wasn't Gary Busey. There was another guy on there, Bill Paxton. I forget. They had one character on Predator 2 that was supposed to be Arnold Schwarzenegger returning as his character, and then Arnold didn't want to do it. So
Arnold's
they put
like,
somebody else on.
I'm done with Predators.
Yeah.
It's weird that he'd be done with Predators, but not Terminators. Like he couldn't give up the Terminator ghost for anything.
Well, was it Cameron, right?
Cameron.
That was enough to pull him in, I'm sure.
Oh, John McTiernan's a dick. He probably hated John McTiernan. Well, no, he did this movie with John McTiernan. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I learned nothing.
So, Dave.
Okay. So I will recommend that you go to superheroespeak.com where you can find the podcast every week. Links to all our social media at the top of the page. And of course, comic book reviews by our good friend D Square. One last thing I wanted to say too, like you, John, I think this was something me and my friends rented. Like when it came, we didn't go to the theater to see it, but when it came out on VHS, we rented it.
Nobody did.
And
I mean, the only other way to see it was to see it on network when they showed it, and it was usually cut up. It was cut
and
up
I do remember when it came out,
or HBO,
not knowing who Ian McKellen was at that point in my life.
I didn't either.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like apparently he was a big deal. That's all I knew. Like he was like some famous Shakespearean actor or whatever. He comes in and does this scene as death at the end of the movie. It's like supposed to be like a big cameo. And now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
I didn't know who Ian McKellen was until I think Apt Pupil, I want to say, was the first time I consciously remember him in something.
Yeah, I can't think of.
Because then he made the Gods and Monsters and then X-Men right after. Then he became kind of mainstream.
I don't think I paid attention to him until X-Men.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody did. But I remember him. I remember when they cast him in X-Men. I'm like, that's the guy from Apt Pupil.
And then he was Gandalf.
Then he was Gandalf. And then
did you ever see the movie Extra? I mean, that movie, the TV show Extras on BBC?
No.
I beg pardon?
There's a show called Ricky Gervais. One of his shows.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I know.
One of my absolute favorite scenes of all time is him talking about his method. And he's like, "You pretend to be somebody else, Sir Ian. Gandalf, you shall not." It's like if you've never seen Extras and seen the episode with Ian McKellen, go and watch it. That's my real recommendation. Go watch Extras on BBC, especially the episode with Ian McKellen, because it's one of those BBC shows where there's like 12 episodes in total, something like that, and that's it. Like a lot of British TV.
Yep.
And it's a brilliant show. You should, but yeah, that episode you should watch. It is so funny. And I did learn that yes, you can look back on a movie with new appreciation. So everyone should, something they didn't like before, maybe go back and try again.
You never know. There's a lot of failure movies that become great when you review. Like The Thing was reviled when it came out. It's now considered one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
Yeah, I can't. It's hard for me to comprehend that they couldn't see how good it was.
Well,
or maybe it's just it scared the crap out of them, literally.
Well, I think it was so violent and gory.
Colt 45's theory on why that movie failed is because they killed too many dogs, and white people don't like when dogs are killed in movies.
It's not wrong.
Well, also
there's studies in that white people. If you want cheap heat in a movie, you kill a dog.
Also, what JD said, like, back then we weren't anesthetized to so much gore in a movie.
Yeah.
Unless you were watching like Faces of Death at the time, or something.
Or like an Argento movie or something like that. People weren't. You see the dog. Speaking of dogs behind me, he's having a good time. Like Argento movies like that, but the mainstream American audience wasn't watching, Giallo films. Where Carpenter's like, hey, I'm going to take something from there and do it even better, which he did. Special effects in that movie rule.
Yeah.
But it's jarring, man. It's a hard watch the first time you watch the thing, but it's great. A lot of his stuff doesn't land right the first time, especially his 80s work. Like, same with Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
Same with They Live. Like,
oh my God, They Live. There's a movie they should remake today.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Careful, I'm going to make us watch that one next.
On that note, before he says it, as always, thanks for listening, and don't let you get caught in the door. Have a good week.